Hello, everyone who's just joined. We'll be getting started in just a few minutes. We'll just wait for a few more people to join.
Oh.
Okay, I think we'll get started now. Hello, everybody. I hope you all had a good day yesterday and really enjoyed the introduction to inclusive design delivered by the brilliant Dr. Matteo Zalio. We will now have a session digging deeper and discussing what disability actually means and how we can work with people as part of the participatory design and co-design process with Daniel Dominey. Daniel is president of Project Impactive, a non-profit organization that works with engineering students to design and build accessibility equipment using participatory design principles. He is also part of the Young Disabled Advisory Group at the Department of Education. For a deep dive into the social model of disability, I will now hand over to Daniel. Please make sure you submit any questions you have in the chat feature, and Daniel will take them at the end. Daniel, over to you.
Great. So, hello everybody this morning. I know it's a bit early and stuff like that, but hopefully it should be a great 20 minutes or so this session here. So I'm going to share my screen. So let's go. So what this topic is, the social model of disability. So we're going to be looking at the overview, what actually is the social model of disability, how does it compare to perhaps the traditional view of disability, and also how can we take this and incorporate this in our projects, in our submissions, and there'll also be a discussion, perhaps there's been some thoughts over the last couple of days about what the format would be, any ideas, and we can help assist you at the end in the Q&A following this session. So I hope that's all great. So the kind of things that we're going to discuss. So we're going to first address the common misconceptions, the medical model, the social model, So those are the two models that we're going to examine here, and also working with disabled people. So how do we use the social model in working with disabled people, and how we use it in our submissions? And I'm aware for some of us, this may be a bit tedious. Maybe we know all about this before, maybe we have lived experiences with disability. So if you are one of those people, I do encourage you, to chip in at any point with your own personal experiences, because it would be great if you could do that. Just put it in the chat or raise your hand and I can unmute you, etc. Just because it just makes it a richer experience if we can link it to real life, I think. So that is an overview of today's session. So I hope that's all clear. And then, as I realize it is 9 o'clock in the morning, let's get nice and bright. We are now going to do a Kahoot quiz. So what I would like you to do is, go to this this link up here, and I'm going to put it into the chat function. If you would like to go to this link here, where's the chat function? More chat. Okay, right. Yeah, so if you could go to that link there, and then we're going to do a quiz to kick things off. Right, screen share. There you are. Let's see how many players we can get joining us today. Get some music on. There's 6 of us, so let's have 7 players, 6 or 7 players. Great, so we've got 3. Let's see if we can get everyone else joining. Let's see if we can get anyone else joining, because I can see that there are there's more than 2 of us in this session this morning. Let's just go. And then I'll wait for 1 more minute, and then I'll join. So come on, guys, let's do this. So 6 of us. Let's. Anybody else that's having difficulties joining? Yeah, right. We've got 7, and I think there is 8 of us, isn't there? Yeah, so that's great. I'll start now then. So this should be a nice quiz, So let's just start. So how many disabled people do you think there are in the UK? Is the first question. So and no Googling is allowed as well. Because because I do realise we're doing online sessions, you can always just type it into Google. Yeah, so it is 14 million. So I can see all 5 of you put 2.2 million. So yes, when I do say the statistic, it does sometimes surprise people. There's a whole range of disabled people, and I think that's especially when you include that all disabilities are visible. So it's far more prevalent than you may expect. So let's go on to the next question. So now you got that all right. So true or false? Well, I think Yes. So yeah, I did accidentally give this away in the previous question, but yes, it's very important to, because you don't want to necessarily, you know, assume someone has a disability. They may not, or they do. It's just having an open mind when you work with disabled people. Great. Next question. Let's see what the leaderboard is. So it says, Sandor, you are leading by 10 points. Okay, I can see some mixed, a split of votes. So 2 of us said that cancer is not a disability. And then 4 of us went with the correct answer, none of them. And 1 of us went with HIV and AIDS. So I think that it'll come clear on why these are all disabilities later. So I think we'll return to this question at the end of the session. Hopefully this will make sense that these are all disabilities if you consider it in the social model of disability, which will come on later. Oh, let's see. Millie's in the list. Yeah. Right. Mhm. Okay. So yes, well done everyone. So yeah, so impairment and disability is the same thing. Is not the same thing, sorry. What this means is, because what impairment is, it's the you know, the loss which, you know, for instance, you know, like a hearing loss, for instance. But the disability is kind of like deafness, because disability is taking account of, you know, the surrounding environment. But we'll come into more detail of that. It's just to warm our minds up this morning. So we're nearly there. We're going through all this, changing the leaderboard. Right. So we've got 3 more questions here. There's a 50-50 split, so it should be, you know, there's 1 in 2. Yes, so that's great. We all got this question. So I think this question just illustrates that in, you know, in a particular scenario, people with, you know, different disabilities, different conditions, even, you know, non-disabled people, or not normal. It's very important not to use the normal term, but non-disabled people will have, you know, face different barriers, you know, as we all said there. Right then. So now let's investigate this question, the previous question, a bit further. So, does people with muscular dystrophy will all face the same barriers when trying to make a cup of tea? Okay, yes. So I think this is a very important point to consider when you're doing your submissions, is because either, you know, the severity of a disability can differ, but also if you think about a cup of tea, some people like to, you know, drink their tea black, and some people like to drink it with milk. So the person that likes to drink it black won't it necessarily come into won't necessarily have the potential problem of opening a bottle of milk to pour the milk into the tea, because they don't do that. So they all have a very different environment, as well as perhaps the disability is different as well, or the impairment, I must say, within the same condition. Right, so we'll just see. It's a very tight leaderboard. You see, we've got 3 right at the top here. Okay. Right, so we've got 2 more questions left. Great. So here we are. We've got an even split. So we got accessing the restaurant via steps, and we got ask the disabled person who the expert is. So I'm going to show. So if you take this picture here as a scenario, you don't necessarily know, all the disabilities that this person face. You don't necessarily know the situation they're in. You don't know whether, they might be in a lift in a restaurant or something like that, in which case or a ramp, in which case the stairs wouldn't be a barrier. So I think the key takeaway to do this, and it's the whole essence of participatory design, which was discussed yesterday, is ask the disabled person who is the expert. Because it's very important not to, what one person may find as difficult, or one person has particular barriers that they face, is not at all generalizable to anybody else. It's the same way that we consider ourselves all to be unique and different. That's a very common saying. It's exactly the same with disabled people like me. You can't just lump us all into one bucket to say they have all the same difficulties. And it's also just have a conversation with them. They are the expert. They're the only one in their shoes. So that hopefully has cleared up that question. Yeah, so they are the experts. They should be the ones telling you. Don't assume anything. That's the thing to take away from that question. Right, let's see if this is shaking up the leaderboard at all. Right. So last question. Let's see if we can end on a high. Yes, so we did say that disability can be temporary. An example of this that has already come up is cancer, because you only get cancer for a temporary, hopefully temporary period of time, not always the case. And it's just important to consider that, disabilities can also, or, somebody's health condition can, fluctuate. So it can go up and down. So that may be something you need to consider with your product is, can it be used on, on a particular bad day or a particular good day? Because like some days, I find it, more difficult to walk up some stairs, so I have to use the lift, but some days I'm absolutely fine and I can go out running. So it's about thinking, do you need multiple entry points for the product or the idea you're going to make so it's accessible at all times? And only the disabled person themselves is the expert in this. It's very difficult to guess this. Right, so that's the end of the quiz. Let's see who is top of the podium. We have Millie on top of the podium, in third, sorry. Mike Ox in seventh. And then we got, who is the leader? We have GJB. So well done to GJB. So hopefully that's been a really good introduction, just to get our minds nice and energized this morning about kind of like disability awareness and common misconceptions I've come across as a personal question. So let's go. Yes. So there we are. That's the end. So I'm going to stop that screen share. I'm going to come back to my PowerPoint and we should kick it off now. Right. Let's go. So let's screen share. And just let me know if you have any questions at the chat at any point. I think this is going to be a discussion process. So hopefully it'll be two-way. So do feel free to ask any questions or any clarifications all the way through, and I'll keep monitoring the chat. Okay, so share that screen. Okay, great. So we've just done the Kahoot quiz. So hopefully we should be starting to think perhaps like, what we got wrong, perhaps what we're good at, and we need to continue to do that when we do our submissions and stuff like that. So, so as we've come across, so definitions of common terms. So we had this question here about in the Kahoot quiz about, that impairment is different to a disability. So for instance, I use my example of my deafness, which is also a hearing, is a hearing loss, is the impairment. So but I think what's interesting is it differs from the commonplace. So this is just a purely hypothetical example, so for instance, this is kind of the differing from what's common. So if you were to consider, for instance, a society that, didn't communicate using speech, let's say we all used sign language, and then you could kind of argue in that instance that hearing loss isn't a impairment, and deafness isn't a disability, because that function is not used. Yes, it's just very. And then there's also another term that quite commonly comes up, and it's called ableism. And ableism is when it's, this comes the whole concept of normality, and which the ableism is when you consider being normal is better, and that is wrong in all these situations, because sometimes there are positive aspects that hopefully maybe be able to enable these these projects, these missions, the tech you're going to create to show off those positive aspects, because sometimes for instance, if I have Asperger's, for instance, that means I'm very well focused. I'm probably more focused than a person that doesn't have Asperger's. So it's that kind of thing. So there are positive aspects of it, which is why you should be very careful of not falling into the ableism trap. And also, I think what's very important when I've been especially contacting speakers to come and speak to you about this, is that that's actually, some of them have been really love the idea of this hackathon, but they're not necessarily being defined by a disability. We're far more than a disability. There's a living, breathing person under it. So that is one aspect of why we consider the social model, which we'll now come into. So I hope you can all see this okay. So the kind of traditional, quite often used in the Victorian times, it's quite often used in practice, is kind of to focus on the person. So the person is the problem that needs to be fixed or changed. So this is kind of like focusing on, so for instance, doing an operation to solve the problem solve the problem. Whereas we now have something called the social model of disability. And this is kind of focusing, hang on a sec, we are putting these barriers in place, and we're causing them to go to the problem of they have to get it medically fixed or medically solved, and that shouldn't be the case. What it should be is, though, it's the environment around them, it's the barriers, it's the discrimination that everybody puts into place. Even, I've seen, some disabled people, sometimes have a negative attitude to another disabled person. So we are, it's about working together, working collaboratively, as it is in this hackathon, about trying to really create change by utilizing this social model, by changing the environment, because as things were said yesterday, that it is the whole it helps everybody. So if you take, for instance, the example of a poorly designed PA public announcement tunnel in a station, a deaf person certainly can't hear it, or if I certainly can't hear it with my deafness. But even a normal, not a normal person, even a person that doesn't have deafness, by the definition of the social model, would still struggle to hear the public announcement tannoy. So it helps everybody. So that there is also, that does raise the whole spectrum of disability, because there may be some very mild, some people may not classify as a disability, but according to this model it is a disability. And, it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just we've got to work together, and and it helps. It's just a positive way to do things. So that's the social model of disability. So this is just the points side by side. So I think the essence is the medical model is that it's all on the person. The onus is on the person. This problem needs to be solved. They need to be fixed. They need to be brought back to almost like a dangerous kind of normality, which shouldn't be the case. We should make them normal. But that is, what makes us different, what makes us amazing. So we should, embrace those differences, and that's where the social model is, and allowing people to express themselves. Yes. So so going on, so we've talked about this, and now we're going to move on to the the later stage and what we're going to be discussing now. And I'm very happy to stay on the call, and if you want to have some specific advice about any ideas that you've had generated in the last couple of days. Just because I am aware from now on I can't necessarily give specific advice to your project. So I was thinking about how people have worked with me in the past, and and how I would like to have them work with me. So sometimes my bad experiences. So like, for instance, yes. So I think the first thing is to include them. So this is part of the whole co-design process, but don't, you obviously have to, you want to include them and build up that relationship. But I've been in meetings about how people can support me, and there's been 8 people around the table, and that's been very disorientating me as a as a young child growing up, and you have, it's quite intimidating. So include them as much as they can, but just try and do it in a nice, positive, and just take time to build that relationship, because they are the experts. They are a better expert than you. You're just bringing your technical expertise and your knowledge of what's out there to support them. So take the time for them to really show their expert knowledge to you, and let them share that expert knowledge. Yes, and that also links to listening, and the principles of being open and not assuming anything. I think that is everything here. I mean, just being. Yes, so we had a specific question on the Slack about how to find people to enable a co-participatory approach. So in an ideal world, there's different ways of doing it. I think one point to consider is, addressing something of the greatest need is not necessarily the easiest option, because if everybody was to do the easiest option, to solve this particular problem, it would, that problem would get solved, and then all the big problems, would get solved, and it would be an inefficient use. So these are just some of the suggestions. I'm happy to advise you on, if put you in contact with particular people. So I think the easiest thing is to think about the people so for instance, is there a friend, is there a relative, is there even a grandma that wants to do something that she can't do, just base it on your own personal, because then that'd be really easy to incorporate, and you can get your feedback, and that whole process, that iterative process that was discussed yesterday. So also I've set up a Slack channel called participatory design. So if we can really come together and perhaps even solve problems for each other. So if you have a problem, and if you want to put it into the Slack channel, and we can all come together and use our collective brain power to solve that. Or if you have not necessarily a problem, but a challenge, a barrier that you want to overcome, and you don't want to publicly disclose it, just send me a private message, and I can put it on anonymously, and I can match you up with people. So let me know if you want me to do that. You can also reach out to the group support networks for particular disabilities or particular groups of people. They're all over Facebook, and I'm sure they will want you to help them, but just take your time, take your care, and don't be just be. But also there is the whole aspect of the universal design process. So there's universal design, which is different to inclusive design. And I think a common example would be a ramp is an example of a universal design, because everybody can use it. A wheelchair user can use it, but also a person that so a person that might have mild cerebral palsy but can walk a short distance will be able to use the ramp, whereas inclusive design would be perhaps a specialized customized chair lift or something like that, which would only be able to be used by that person with the disability. So the advantage of the universal design approach is that it can become the default option, so it will work for everybody. But sometimes that is just not possible. But I would strongly advocate for you using the universal design process approach, and you will have to have disabled and non-disabled people as part of the process, to really give you iterative feedback. So if you want specific advice to say in the bottom, just please email me. I think the email's at the back page of the info pack, or just get in contact and I'll do my best to assist. So there are some very interesting free resources coming up. So these free resources are the things I found helpful, and if you want to explore, there's also one about particularly explicitly explains you how to do a participatory workshop I found on a blog. So do check out that link if you get to the stage and you're unsure on how to involve people specifically in your project. And I think that now concludes the end. So thanks very much for watching. I hope that was an insightful session. So now we're going to go into the Q&A, and I'm open to all questions. Ask it. No questions stupid. That's what I mean. So let me see what the questions are. Stop share. Okay, great. Let's see what we got. Any questions coming up. Yeah, and if you want a question, just post it in the Zoom chat, and I'll read them out from there. Don't be too scared. Let's just see. So I think the first question that we've got come in is about no, sorry. Right, let's just see. So do any of you have, so what are you, actually let's do slightly different than Q&A. So what are your initial thoughts on what you would like to create? What, and how do you think this links to what I've discussed? Let's ask you questions. Sorry if I'm putting you on the spot, but we can unmute you if you want. Oh. I think as it's all a bit early in the morning, I'll hand back over to Amelia, because it doesn't seem like many of you want to ask questions. Yes, yes to GJBX. Yes, I'm asking what ideas have you had so far? Yes, so if you would like to go ahead. Let's just see. Well, okay, I think everyone's okay. So GJBX says we are thinking of a writing aid for people struggling with muscular dystrophy or other disabilities, such as I think I'm not entirely sure what that last one. I think it'd be. I'm not entirely sure what that last disability is. CIDP. Yes. So the things you need to consider is yeah. And then Leah has said our group has brainstormed a device to help meet people and communicate. This is nothing. I just want to. You're not in trouble at all, but I just want to. As this is a great time to bring it up, I wouldn't. I think mute is a, you know, it's absolutely fine for you to use it, but I wouldn't recommend you using the word mute because I would be very wary of using terminology that kind of defines people's limitations. So one example would be to use mute or something like wheelchair bound because people have an identity beyond their own disabilities. They want to be and also with the example of wheelchair bound and wheelchair user kind of explains that they use their wheelchair, to go about their lives, to do what they want to do. Whereas wheelchair bound sounds a bit, limiting, a bit almost like you've got a negative attitude towards disabled people. So if we could encourage that use, that'd be great. Yes. So I think you have to consider. Yes, it'd be great if you could, consider, because I can talk to you a bit more separately, yes, later on. So I think we'll wrap it up there. So if I could hand over to Amelia.
Sure. Thank you so much, Daniel, for the really insightful talk and Q&A session. I think hopefully everyone who was joining in the course found it really useful. And yeah, it was a really engaging session and very helpful for questioning how we think about disability. We hope that you will use what you've learned in this session when working on your projects, and do reach out to Daniel with any further questions that you have. He's very happy to help you if you do have any questions. Also, please do keep using the Slack channel to connect with your fellow participants. We've got the participants chat that you can introduce yourselves in, get to know each other. It is virtual, but that shouldn't hold you back. And also the participatory design channel that Daniel mentioned, use that to brainstorm together. And also the experts channel, we have some fantastic, really experienced experts in there who you can ask about technology specifics and any other questions you have, whether it's about your project or just generally. Also, one more thing, please do get social on social media. You can share pictures of your setup or just an update on how you're finding the hackathon. And if you tag Project Impactive and UCL TechSoc and use the hashtag Accessibility Hackathon 2020, we can repost your post on our Facebook page or our Instagram page. So yeah, definitely get involved in that. We'd love to see how you're getting on. And
Bye.
thanks, guys.
Bye.